A rich man went on a trip with his girlfriend and left his wife behind at home. When he arrived, he was shocked by what he saw. The golden lights of the New York skyline poured in through the huge windows of the Hayes mansion, lighting up the massive and perfectly decorated living room. The place was stunning, shiny marble floors, sparkling chandeliers worth more than most houses, and a quiet, rich feeling in the air. But even with all its beauty, the house felt cold and empty. Maggie Hayes stood at the bottom of the big staircase, her hand resting lightly on the railing as she watched her husband, Jonathan Hayes, button up his sharp white shirt in front of the mirror. His suitcase was wide open on the bed, already packed and neat. She knew what that meant. He wasn't going away for just a few days. He was leaving her again. She had seen this scene too many times before. The same fancy bag, the same expensive, smelled the same lie. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice calm but steady. "Another business trip, Jonathan." Jonathan didn't even move, kept buttoning his shirt like nothing had happened. His face in the mirror stayed calm. "Don't start this, Maggie." She crossed her arms. "Start what?" he sighed, and finally turned around to face her. He looked annoyed, like she was nothing but a small problem. "Pretend you don't know what's going on." Silence filled the room. Maggie felt a slow pain in her chest, but she didn't show it. Instead, she raised her chin a little. "So you're not even going to lie this time?" Jonathan gave a small, cold smirk. "Why should I? We both know what this marriage really is now." Maggie's hands squeezed into fists, but her face stayed still. She had always felt him pulling away late nights at work, weird excuses, perfume, on his shirts that didn't belong to her. And now, he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Her voice dropped lower. "How long?" Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "How long? What?" She swallowed hard. "How long have you been seeing her?" His face changed for just a moment. Something flickered, but it disappeared fast. "Does it even matter?" Maggie let out a slow breath. "I guess not." Jonathan paused, waiting for her to yell or cry or beg him not to leave. But she didn't. She just stared at him with those deep brown eyes, eyes that used to love him. Now they were empty, and somehow that shook him. He picked up his watch from the table and slid it onto his wrist. "You'll be fine without me, Maggie. You always are." She let out a dry, sad laugh. "That's what you've always counted on, isn't it?" He didn't reply. He zipped his suitcase shut with a loud final sound. And then a voice called from the hallway. "Darling, are you ready?" Maggie's stomach turned. She didn't have to look. She already knew it was Sophie Carter, the other woman. Sophie stood in the doorway with perfect nails and a tight, expensive dress. Her long blonde curls fell over her shoulders. She was everything Maggie wasn't: young, full of energy, and fake. Maggie didn't look at her. Jonathan did. He smirked, and that smile made Maggie's blood go cold. "I'll be right there," he told Sophie. Sophie glanced at Maggie, gave her a fake sweet smile, and walked away. Maggie's fists tightened at her sides, not because she was jealous, but because she was angry. Angry at herself for letting it go this far. Jonathan looked at her, expecting her to cry or yell, but instead, she stepped back, her face unreadable. "Go." Jonathan frowned. "What?" She looked him in the eyes. "If this is what you want, then go." For the first time that night, he froze. And this wasn't the Maggie he remembered, the one who always waited, forgave, and believed he'd come back. This Maggie looked done. He shook off the feeling. This is what he wanted. Without a word, he picked up his suitcase and walked past her, out of the house. Maggie didn't move. Just stood there until she heard the front door close, and then silence. She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. She turned and walked upstairs, closing the bedroom door behind her. She had let him go, but what Jonathan didn't know was he wasn't the only one who made a choice that night. High above the clouds, the private jet flew smoothly. The sound of the engines filled the fancy cabin. Sophie Carter relaxed in her soft leather seat, sipping sparkling wine. She looked like a model, long legs crossed, sunglasses resting on her perfect blonde curls. Jonathan Hayes, on the other hand, barely touched his drink. He stared out the window at the endless blue sky, but felt trapped. This trip was supposed to be perfect. A weekend at a private island resort. No responsibilities, no nagging, no drama. Just fun. So why did he feel so empty? When they landed, the resort staff greeted them with big smiles and perfect manners. Their villa had everything: private pool, beach view, even a personal butler. It was paradise. But Jonathan couldn't enjoy any of it. Sophie clung to him at dinner, whispering sweet things, laughing too loud, talking nonstop. He barely heard her. It was tiring. Maggie never needed to be entertained. That thought hit him like a slap. He shook it off, tried to smile while Sophie poured him more wine. Don't think about her. That night, while Sophie slept in silk sheets, Jonathan stayed awake. He stared at the ceiling, annoyed with himself. Why couldn't he let it go? He thought of Maggie. First, he laughed to himself. She's probably crying, probably hoping I'll come back. But then, he remembered how she looked when he left. She hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. She just let him go. That wasn't like her. He sat up in bed, confused. Why does it bother me? I got what I wanted, so why did it feel like he had lost something? Memories. Rushed in little things. The way Maggie used to fix his tie, have his coffee ready, curl up beside him during movies. Things he never thought he'd miss. He rubbed his face. Why are you thinking about this? You're here with Sophie. Maggie's gone. The past is gone. But it didn't feel gone. It felt like it still had him. While Jonathan sat in his luxury villa, battling thoughts he didn't want to have. Maggie Hayes was writing a new story. She didn't cry. She didn't wait by the phone. She went to a fancy boutique, and for the first time in years, bought a dress she liked. Not for a party, not for Jonathan. For herself. She sat in a salon chair, letting them cut away the plain look Jonathan liked. She chose a bold, confident style. She met up with an old friend who invited her to a charity gala. This time she said yes. Maggie wasn't waiting anymore. She was moving on. The sound of waves filled the morning air as Jonathan sat outside his fancy villa. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat beside him. His phone buzzed. It was a message from his old friend, Daniel Carter. I can't believe it, Jonathan. You actually let her go. Jonathan's heart skipped. Let who go? But he already knew. He opened the message. There was a photo, and when he saw it, he froze. It was Maggie, but not the Maggie he left behind, not the quiet, gentle wife who lived. In his shadow, this woman was glowing. She stood in a grand ballroom, wearing a deep red satin dress that hugged her perfectly. Her brown hair flowed in soft waves. Her lips were painted a bright, bold red, the kind he'd never seen her wear, and she was smiling. Not a fake smile, not a sad one, a real smile. Bright, free, alive, and she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a tall, elegant man Jonathan had never seen before. He leaned in close, whispering into her eye, and Maggie laughed. Jonathan's hand tightened around his phone. He swiped up quickly, reading the headline attached to the image. Billionaire's wife stuns at gala. Is Maggie Hayes New York's newest star? The article praised her beauty, her grace, the way she stole everyone's attention without even trying. Maggie Hayes, the woman Jonathan had ignored for years, was now the center of the spotlight. And him? He was just a ghost in her past. Jonathan slammed his phone down onto the table. His heart was pounding. This had to be a mistake. Just a weird angle, a trick of the light. Maggie couldn't be this person. She wasn't supposed to shine like this. She was supposed to be at home. Waiting, wasn't she? His thoughts spun backward to the day he left. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even look hurt. And now, just days later, she looked like she was living her best life. The thought hit him like a punch. For the first time ever. Replaced, and he hated it. The whole day Jonathan couldn't think straight. Sophie noticed. Jonathan, she said sweetly, stretching out beside him on the lounge chair. You've been staring at your phone for an hour. Get an answer. Sophie leaned closer, kissing his jaw. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's enjoy our trip." But Jonathan didn't move. His eyes were still glued to the screen. Still scrolling through pictures of Maggie, Sophie leaned in, her eyes catching the article he was reading. When she saw Maggie's name, her smile dropped. "She's playing a game," Sophie said lightly, though her tone had turned sharp. "She just wants your attention." Jonathan froze. Was it true? Was Maggie putting on a show? Or had he completely misjudged her? There was only one way to know. He had to go home, Jonathan. Hayes wasn't used to second-guessing himself. He made decisions. People followed. That's how his world worked. But now, for the first time, everything felt out of control. And it was all because of her. Maggie, the woman he left behind, the woman he thought would stay, was frozen in place. But she hadn't, and it was driving him mad. The next few days at the resort were supposed to be paradise. Sophie sure acted like it was. She wore bright smiles, sipped champagne, posed in perfect lighting for endless selfies. But Jonathan, he wasn't really there. He didn't care about the beach, or the fancy dinners, or even the stunning woman beside him. He only thought about Maggie. Every time he opened his phone, there were more photos, more videos, more headlines. She was laughing, dancing, looking at other men the way she used to look at him, and she wasn't alone first. It was that dark-haired businessman at the gala, then another some European investor, then another real estate mogul whispering in her ear. And Maggie, she smiled. Not out of politeness. Not to be polite. She looked like she meant it. Like she was. Happy. Jonathan's hand clenched around his glass. His jaw tightened until it ached. He told himself. Didn't matter that she could do whatever she wanted, but inside, the thought of Maggie with someone else made his blood boil. Sophie noticed the change right away. Jonathan was glued to his phone, distant cold. One night, as they sat on their villa's balcony, Sophie snapped. She set her wine glass down. Hard. "Jonathan, what's going on with you?" He barely looked at her. Nothing. Sophie crossed her arms. "Really? Because you've been acting like a ghost?" Jonathan rubbed his temples. "I said it's nothing, Sophie. Drop it." But Sophie had already seen the name on his screen, Maggie Hayes. Her lips curled in irritation. "You're still checking on her, aren't you?" Jonathan didn't reply. Sophie gave a bitter laugh. Unbelievable. "You're jealous?" His whole body stiffened. "I'm not jealous," he snapped. Sophie smirked. "Sure, that's why you refresh your name every 10 minutes. Jonathan glared at her. Double quotes. "Oh, Jonathan," she purred, running a finger down his arm. "I knew this would happen. You never appreciated her until..." She stopped waiting. His temper snapped. "That's enough, Sophie." She raised an eyebrow. "Or what? You'll go running back to her?" Jonathan didn't answer, because deep down, he was starting to wonder if maybe that's exactly what he should do. That night, he tried calling Maggie. No answer. He sent a message. Nothing, he told himself. She was just busy. But he knew the truth. She wasn't ignoring him to make him. She wasn't answering, because she didn't care anymore. And somehow, that was worse than hate. Jonathan didn't sleep by morning. He had made his decision. He was leaving. Sophie wasn't happy. She stood across the room, arms crossed, eyes cold. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're going home?" Jonathan kept packing. "Yes." Sophie laughed bitterly. "Wow, you're pathetic." Jonathan froze. She tilted her head. "You left your wife for me, Jonathan. Now you're crawling back to her?" He zipped his suitcase and turned to her. "I never said I left her for you." Her eyes narrowed. "Screw you." Jonathan didn't care, because for the first time in weeks, he knew exactly what he needed to do. It wasn't about winning Maggie back. It was about finally facing what he had lost. And now he had to find out. Was it already too late? The moment? Jonathan stepped into his New York mansion, felt that something was different. The house was alive. Music. Laughter. CLINKING glasses. A party. His party. No, he hadn't planned anything, but here it was. His grip tightened on his suitcase as he walked in, the cold empty house he had left now glowed with warmth and energy. Guests in glittering outfits filled the grand room. Waiters offered drinks. The whole place buzzed with life. And then he saw her, Maggie Hayes. She stood in the center, wearing a midnight blue dress that hugged her figure with elegance. Her hair flowed in soft waves. Her lips, that same bold red, curved into a smile as she laughed with the man beside her. Jonathan couldn't see anything else. Only one thing was clear. She was happy, really happy. And worst of all, it had nothing to do with him. The man beside her was tall, confident, dressed in style. He had that effortless charm. Jonathan hated him instantly. He watched the way Maggie leaned in as they talked, the way her eyes sparkled, the way she looked free. A deep, burning feeling twisted in Jonathan's chest. Before he knew it, he was walking toward her. Maggie turned just as he reached her. Their eyes met and Jonathan's heart dropped. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look angry. She looked unbothered, like he didn't shake her world at all. And somehow, that was the most painful thing of all. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice low, tight with emotion. Maggie raised a brow, her voice cool. "Enjoying my night." Her calmness only made him burn more. He took a step closer. "Who is that?" he asked coldly. His eyes locked onto the man standing beside her. Maggie raised an eyebrow, amused. "That's not your concern." Jonathan's temper snapped. "You're my wife," he hissed. Maggie didn't even flinch. "Funny," she said with a small smile. "I don't remember you caring about that when you ran off with Sophie." Silence crashed over the room. Some guests had turned to look, whispers spreading, curious eyes watching. Jonathan didn't care. All he could see was her, the woman he thought he knew. "What's going on, Maggie?" he asked, his voice lower. Now, but sharp with something dark. Maggie stared at him, eyes steady. Then finally, she spoke, words she had buried for far too long. "Isn't this what you wanted, Jonathan?" He frowned. "What are you talking about?" She shook her head softly, voice calm but strong. "You always thought I'd wait, and no matter how far you went, I'd still be here. But I'm not that woman anymore, Jonathan." He stood frozen. Her words struck deeper than he ever expected. All those years, he had taken Maggie for granted, assumed she'd always be waiting. But now she wasn't. Not because of someone else, not out of revenge, but because she had finally chosen herself, and something inside him cracked, something he didn't know could even break. For the first time, he truly felt what it meant to lose, and the worst part. He did this to himself. The party ended. Everyone left. The house was quiet, again, but this silence was different. Not the cold emptiness he used to feel this time. It was the weight of regret. And Maggie, she was still standing there in the grand living room, calmly sipping wine, like she hadn't just torn his world apart. She looked powerful, calm, untouched. And for the first time, Jonathan didn't see his wife. He saw a woman he had lost, a woman he might never get back. He took a deep breath, then stepped closer. "We need to talk." Maggie didn't turn right away. She swirled her wine slowly. "About what?" His jaw tightened. "About us." It got her attention. She gave a short, dry laugh, set the glass down, and faced him. "There is no us, Jonathan. You ended that." Words hit him like a slap. He swallowed hard. "I was wrong." She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Oh, really? And what exactly were you wrong about?" Jonathan exhaled slowly. "Everything." For a second, her face changed. Not pain. Not anger. Just peace. And that's when he knew she wasn't saying these things to hurt him. She had already healed, and that terrified him. "I was too blind to see what I had," he admitted. "I took you for granted. I thought you'd never leave, and I was a fool." Silence sat between them. Then she nodded. Double quotes. "Yes, you were." He winced. But he deserved that. She studied him carefully. "Why are you here, Jonathan?" His throat tightened. "Because I want you back." She sighed, shaking her head. "Jonathan, Please, he said, his voice low, shaking. Let me fix this. She laughed, but it wasn't warm. You don't get to walk away and return when it's convenient for you. I know, he whispered, stepping closer. But I also know I can't lose you. Her face didn't change. You already have. His heart twisted. Then let me prove I can be better. Her lips parted slightly. His words had caught her. Off guard. She stared at him for a long time, and then she whispered, What if I don't love you anymore? He felt the air leave his lungs. She wasn't saying it to hurt. Him, she didn't know the answer, and that was worse, because her love had always been the one thing he was sure of, and now even that was gone. Jonathan cut Sophie out of his life. No explanation, no drawn-out goodbye, just a clean, painful end. Then he did what he had never done. He went public. I was a terrible husband to the woman who gave me everything, confessed, and I will spend the rest of my life becoming better. The media exploded. Jonathan, the man who had always kept his life private, had just opened his wounds to the world. But he didn't care, because this wasn't about fame, it was about Maggie. He found out the things she loved, the art gallery she once dreamed of, the charity she wanted to grow, the tiny bookstore she used to hide in before. Marriage buried her dreams, one by one. He brought those things back, not to impress her, not to win her, but to finally listen. Weeks passed. Jonathan thought Maggie would soften quickly. She didn't. She watched from a distance, quiet, careful, refusing to believe too soon. But one night, under the golden lights of their balcony, the same place where everything once broke, she finally spoke. If I give you a chance, it'll be on my terms. Jonathan nodded, swallowing hard. Anything. Her eyes were firm. No lies, no half-truths. Oh, pretending everything will go back to the way it was. I don't want what we had, he said hoarsely. I want something better. She let out a slow breath. She wasn't sure, but she was willing to try. And for Jonathan, that was enough. Months passed. One evening, they stood side by side on that same balcony, the city glowing beneath them. Jonathan turned to her. Do you regret giving me another chance? Maggie smirked. Ask me again in a year. He laughed, softly, shaking his head. Fair enough. They weren't perfect. They weren't healed, but they were trying. And for the first time in his life, Jonathan understood love wasn't about getting someone back. It was about becoming someone worth staying for. And this time, he wouldn't run. Jonathan thought he could leave his marriage without damage, that Maggie would always be there, loving, forgiving, waiting. But love doesn't survive on being ignored. Maggie wasn't just the wife he abandoned. She was the woman who found herself. Jonathan had to learn the hard way. Love isn't possession. It's choosing someone. Every day before it's too late. And when he was given a second chance, he didn't just try to win her back. He worked to become the man she truly deserved.